Yo, 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 this is Candy B Knittin. I'm Candy B, and I be knitting. And I've been away a couple of weeks between illness and traveling. And so I have actually quite a bit to get caught up on. And so I'm going to try to see how much I can fit into my normal time slot. And if not, this will just be a little bit of a longer one. First thing, I'll show y'all a couple of finished objects. Socks for Mr. Rulude. Not much to write home about on these. These are Stephen West basic sock pattern with the garter stitch heel flap on them. This is in Knit Picks Felici, which has since been discontinued, in the colorway Yipe Stripes. And then the contrasting color you see here is actually another discontinued Knit Picks yarn. It's not. I don't think it's discontinued per se. It's called Essential Kettle Dyed in the colorway Auburn, but I believe they just call this Hawthorne now. This was a yarn I got secondhand with an old label on it, but I think this is technically Hawthorne now, and it's a superwash nylon blend fingering weight yarn with this kind of tonal variegation. And Mr. Rulude expressed interest in getting his socks made a little bit longer, and I was a bit nervous that a 50-gram ball, I've never made him these. I was going for about 5 to 6 inches on the leg, and I didn't know how far a 50-gram ball of yarn would take me. Turns out they took me pretty far. The final sock, this one weighs about 43 grams, so I think I could have finished with the 50-gram ball. Well, I definitely could have knit this out of one 50-gram ball, but I just anticipated, I didn't want to be too stressed out, so I grabbed this contrasting yarn. I ended up with about this much left of everything. So this is the two Yipe Stripes, and this is the Auburn, the kettle dyed Auburn. And like I said, this is Stephen West pattern, his free basic fingering weight pattern. I'll put it in the notes below. And I did this with 76 stitches, I think this one is 76 stitches. Mr. Rulude, between wearing the socks and just having, stretching them out a little bit with wear, because it is superwash yarn that tends to grow, my gauge becoming looser over time as I become more and more comfortable knitting socks. And Mr. Rulude has actually lost a bit of weight over the past year or so. And so we've been kind of playing around with stitch counts and stuff. So this one is 76 stitches, and it's still a little bit on the loose side. I started off with 80 stitches. This is 76 stitches, and it seemed like it was going well. The next socks I'm going to show you are 72 stitches, and if the 72 stitches is still too loose, I'll probably go down to 68 stitches and see where we get with that. The last thing I want to note on these is actually something that came out of the comment section of my YouTube channel, which, it's like, oh, that's why I have a YouTube channel for, like you think like, oh, should I really do this? If I don't do anything else, this is the most valuable thing I've gotten out of YouTube. Someone commented when I was talking about my slip knits, my SSKs becoming really loose and sloppy. Someone in the comments was just like, oh, I just do knit 2 togethers for my whole sock. And I was just like, bruh, the thought didn't even occur to me. And so for my heel shaping, for the gusset, for the toe, I just did knit 2 togethers all the way around. In my mind, in my baby knitter mind, I thought that if you mixed up right and left leaning decreases, you would end up with like some sort of weird wonky shape, but that's not the case at all. And it came out super duper neat, and I like it. It came out a lot neater than my slip knits. I didn't have to think about what side of the sock I was on. All I had to do was keep track of, it was a decrease round or a knit straight round, and I was able to do these usually when I'm on my cuff or my toe or my heel. I usually do that at home with minimal distractions, but I actually did both of these like out and about, and I didn't really have to think much about doing the gusset decreases or the toe decreases. So thank you, kind commenter, for that suggestion. And even if I do figure out this SSK thing, I think I'm going to do my socks like that from now on, because I think it looks a lot neater and cleaner, and it's also socks, so no one's going to be like, unless I'm going to like the state fair or something, no one's going to be looking at my socks and being like, oh wow, your stitch is going the wrong way. So that's that. Mr. Rulud has actually been wearing these socks quite consistently. They actually just came out of the wash, so now I'm going to toss these back to them, and those are those socks. So now I'm on pair 6 out of 7 for him, and these are the next pair. These are the ones that are on 72 stitches on size 0 needles. I've knit all of my socks on size 0 double pointed needles. I'm thinking about maybe investing in a pair of, or a set of 00 needles. And this is his next request. He wanted black and white stripes, and fairly thick black and white stripes. If you notice the Felici, I get about 8 rows per stripe. This is about 16 rows, and this is just from my own machinations as far as, he was like, I want the stripes about that thick, and so based on my gauge, this is where I'm at. I'm doing 16 rows of each color, starting with a black rib. And for these, I'm not going to get into it right now because there's so many other things I want to show you, but I'm actually going to do an afterthought heel, or rather a forethought heels and toes per a book about 2 at a time socks. And so basically you knit a whole tube, and then you cut the tube in half, and you cut in the heels and cut in the toes. And a lot of people like to do it that way because they get that second sock syndrome. I don't get it as much. Like I usually blow through my second sock pretty quickly. It's mostly because I want to concentrate on this stripe pattern, and I want the socks to be exact matches. Those other socks came out exact matches just by pure coincidence. I had no idea the yarn was going to start in the same place like that. But with this, I want them to intentionally be exact matches to one another, down to the row. And so if I just knit, in a perfect stripe sequence and then cut them directly in half, I should get that. And so that's going to be these socks. The yarn that's another variable I'm throwing into the mix. So far I've used Lion Brand, I forget what Lion Brand sock yarn is called, Sockies, and obviously the Felici yarn. This is actually Hobie's sock yarn, and I don't know if the brand is Black Friday or I just got it, like it came in like a 4-pack, and so I don't know if they call their deals just Black Friday deals, but it came in a pack that says Black Friday on it, and it's superwash yarn, superwash wool mixed with nylon. It's nothing super special. It does feel kind of a lot thinner, and it feels, I can tell it's different from what I've used before. Like the Felici is like kind of super soft and slick. It's softened up a lot in the wash. The Lion Brand Sockies is a little bit more toothy, and this, I'm not sure how I would describe it yet, but it is different from the main sock yarns that I have used. So that's that. I'll let y'all know when this is finished. The other thing I'm gonna have to think about is the socks I just showed you obviously had a white stripe on it, and those socks, that white stripe did pick up some of that auburn color in the wash, and so I'm gonna have to think about how to wash these. Maybe just hand wash these separate from everything else, because I don't want, the whole purpose of these socks is to have that stark white stripe in there, and so I would hate to for anything in my wool laundry to bleed onto this. So things to think about. Speaking of Mr. Rulud, and speaking of finished objects, I got something to show y'all. Let's see. Can I get this in the shot without knocking over the camera? All right. So this is the sorting hat by Daniel Yuhas from his book Knitting from the Center Out that I've been speaking about. And it is complete. Mr. Rulud has been calling this an adventure hat. He also, if you know anything about Dark Souls, I believe there's a person called Big Hat Logan that this reminds him of. And so, I mean, obviously this is a very iconic shape for nerds and nerd adjacent people. But it's just a cone. You shift the increases every single round. Then I got to this flat part here, increase out at a specific rate. If you remember my struggles with this hat, the pattern says use a pipe cleaner or beading wire for the brim. I got beading wire, didn't really hold up, so I actually cut open one of our big reflectors for photography and filming, and so there's a big metal wire going through the edge of this hat that I've actually kind of just sewn in with yarn. I did leave the beading wire in the original I-cord cast off that I did, just because one, I didn't feel like taking it out, and two, you can kind of still mold the edge if you want a little bit more of a rustic look. This hat band here, this contrasting band, is my Handspun, just a white wool to add some texture and some interest. It also serves to cover up inside here where there is some ribbing to make the hat fit around the head. The only thing left is Mr. Rulud. He wants it to stick straight up for Halloween, and so he'll probably stuff this. I like it just as well not stuffed, because it gives me like Gandalf vibes when it's not stuffed. But in order to embody this adventurer character, I forget. I ask him the name of the game that the adventure hat comes from, and then he tells me, and then I forget. So, be on the lookout for Halloween pics from when the Rulud family goes trick or treating. He will be wearing this, I presume, and I'm guessing he's just gonna probably wear this around the house. He has a cloak that I've knit him that he wears quite a bit, and so I think this will get a lot of use. And that's that, and it's done. This is Encore Plymouth yarn, is the dark gray yarn. I used about 4 or 5 balls of that. The next thing I want to show y'all, I guess I'll talk about more gift knits and more handspun. In my Respect the Elders tote bag, I went into, because I pulled out that white handspun from Mr. Rulud's hat, I went ahead and just filled up this whole bag full of all of, like, I call it my proto handspun, my OG handspun, from when I first went to Maryland Sheep and Wool, bought a fleece. I think this is a Lincoln Cross, and just start trying to spin it on my drop spindle. And so I have a lot of like little 20 to 30 gram skeins of very thick and thin 2 and 3 ply yarn that I made. And this is one of my first like hand-dyed braids that I bought. And I think I did this. This is when I was trying to learn on the wheel too. So I just took all of that stuff that I'm like, I don't know what to do with this stuff, and threw it in a bag. And when I was looking for my next project that I'm going to show you, I came across this magazine that was in my stash. One of my knitting nights, someone brought this to the knit night, and it's Creative Knit magazine, and this whole issue is about circular knitting, so we're on theme. And they have a section here about how to make coasters and trivets, and I was just like, oh, that might be my gift for this year. I'm going to see how many coasters and trivets I can knit out of all of this wool yarn, and put some ribbon or something around it, and give them out as Christmas presents this year to like my usually my coworkers. We get each other just little tokens. This is one of them that's already on the needles, and I've already knit up a couple. The thing with home goods is that it's good to use either cotton or yarn, because these are going to be, you can either put an ice cold beverage on a coaster, or I like to put like my hot tea on a coaster, so it doesn't damage my wood tables. Or obviously a trivet is for a hot dish coming out of the oven, and polyester, nylon, all of those types of yarns melt. But if you use wool or cotton, you'll insulate the heat quite well. So this is one that I've already made. I actually washed and dried it to get it felted to add some more structure to it. They call for worsted weight yarn on like size 6 needles. I went up to a size 8 just because it was really killing my hand. And so this is the size 6 one. And oh, here we go. So this is the first one I made. And then this is the second one I made. And so it's a little bit bigger with the bigger needle, obviously, but a lot less stress on my hand. And, you know, if you like a big mug like I do, or you're making a nice big casserole, this is a good size for that. Like I said, the felting adds a little bit more structure to it, and also me initially felting it will put it in a position where it'll kind of have a nice structure to it already, so that I don't have to worry about like, oh, I'm going to felt this. I'm like, oh, it's already felted, so you can't really do much more damage to it. And then I'm going to spritz these out and kind of steam them to get them to lay flat again, because these, you know, are all rumpled from being in the wash. This is how big so this is washed and felted. This is like a pre-felted one, and all I have to do is weave in the ends. And I can make one of these while watching like an episode of television. So I'm going to blow through this whole bag in no time, get a bunch of these, spritz them all out. There's like 5 or 6 different patterns in there to choose from, so I kind of keep it interesting. I don't like knitting the same thing over and over and over again, and so it adds a little bit more interest to kind of rotate the different patterns. They're all started with like a center cast on and worked from the center out, and so it's fun. I like it. It's not as, I've always kind of resisted gift knitting, but this isn't too bad, and I think it's going to be a good way to use up all of my all of this handspun and kind of get it out of my stash and make space for more handspun. So I mentioned digging through to find a pattern to work on, and this is when I've started on my Stripy t-shirt by Sarah Hatton, which comes from a different knitting magazine. And I've showed this before, but I just want to show where I'm at right now. And this is Handspun. This is Gotland. And it just came from like a braid. And then I've got this organic Polworth. And I'll go deeper into this on probably when it's done and give you more information about the yarn and stuff. But I'm just trying to keep it moving to show you all the things I want to show you. And so this is the entire front panel. I have finished the front panel, and I'm striping all of these different yarns. I did fudge the math up a little bit because I thought I think I didn't multiply or divide by 2 somewhere, because there are actually 5 colors and I only managed to get 4 colors on the front, but I do have a plan to bring in the 5th color. So this is the front piece. This is cast on with a provisional cast on. And so all I need to do is, when I finish both pieces, I'll seam them together, pick up the bottom and knit from the bottom down to get the length I want, as well as the ribbing. So yeah, this is the front. It's obviously a V-neck. The other thing on the front is, you can see, I don't know if you can see with the stitch definition, there's not a lot of stitch definition with this handspun. There is a strip of ribbing in the V-neck area. And so you continue to knit this strip. So these 6 stitches on the edge here are actually live stitches that I'm going to pick back up when I finish and knit a band around the neck. It'll be more clear once I show you. So I finished the front. Let me see. This is all I have left of the first ball of the gray yarn. And literally like 15 minutes ago, I cast on a provisional cast on for the back and um, started knitting the back. So I have 2 rows done on the back. And so that's where I'm at with that. This is the colors I'm striping. This is that highlighter yellow, or yellow or green or whatever you would call that color that I still have to pop in there. And so far it's going really well. I thought the stressful part was going to be working with my hand spun, but this shaping was actually quite tricky for me because it's all flat. And speaking of right leaning and left leaning decreases and increases, you have to follow the instructions. Basically, it's a lot of like reverse the thing you did. So on the back, you do the back first, and then they say reverse the shaping for the shoulders for the front, but also do the V stitches or the V-neck shaping. So you're decreasing for V-neck shaping on this side, and then increasing for a sleeve on this side. And so it's just a lot to keep track of. And then I did this whole side first, and then they're like, okay, take everything you did on this side, then reverse that side to get this side. And so the good thing was once I did this side was actually a lot easier, which I did not expect because I'm very bad as far as flip-flopping things and getting things backward. But I just stayed very, very organized. I wrote everything in my notebook. I literally line for line just wrote out everything. The first half of the front, like all of this shaping here, literally I looked back at my journal and I wrote the date that I started this. It took me like 2 or 3 weeks to figure this out and to execute it. And then I bound this off, and then I think Tuesday or Wednesday, I rewrote the directions to do this side, and I literally finished this in like 2 or 3 days, Friday, and in 2 or 3 days I finished this piece, which is pretty good for someone who constantly mixes up left and right. And so I'm pretty pleased. And like the whole time I was doing it, I was like, I'm gonna end up making some goofy mistake. I did probably overthink how to carry the yarn up with the stripes, because in the end I don't think anyone's really gonna see any weird color blips. And then obviously when I get to the top of the back, seeing how these stripes are gonna line up, I want to be thoughtful about that. But at the end of the day, it's going to be 100% or 99.9% hand spun garment. And so I'm going to give myself a little bit more grace. I say 99.9% because I am going to use commercial yarn to do all my seaming, just because I think it's going to be easier. So speaking of that, I was thinking, I'm going to run out of gray yarn. I do have more gray yarn I can spin, and I'm leaning towards doing that and then doing hand spun for all of the ribbing. And then that way I will have a majority hand spun garment, and it'll be my first majority hand spun garment. I think that's going to be really cool. That being said, I did go shopping. I did come across some gray commercial yarn that was wool, that was the right weight, but I was just like, nah. I also hate like buying just a little bit of yarn just to finish a project, so I passed on it. But that being said, I did do some shopping, and so I'm going to quickly show y'all what I bought, and then I'm going to get out of your faces. There is one more thing I really want to show you, but it's like hand spun related, so maybe next week I'll do all the hand spun stuff. I want to show you like fiber prep, spinning, all the stuff I have on bobbins, give you an update on my electric wheel, all that stuff. But right now I'm going to show you my local scrap store, which is a thrift craft store. So secondhand craft projects. Scrap Richmond in Richmond, Virginia. They just moved locations, moved to a whole new location. It's like a couple of blocks from their old location, but probably about 4 or 5 times bigger. There was like a really weird step you had to step up to get into the store that I would not call accessible to most people. And now the entrance is fully accessible. You can get around the store a lot easier. It's a lot cleaner. And it looks like they probably had some things in storage that they brought out just for the opening, because usually like the yarn section was always kind of small and tucked away and a little bit dusty. And now they have like this huge wall of yarn. Went with one of my friends, almost bought the entire section, but I didn't. I was very thoughtful, very demure about what I was going to buy. So, first thing, and I'm just going to show you one or two balls, but I do have multiples of all of these things. Patton's Classic Wool. This is my go-to workhorse 4-weight, worsted weight yarn. 100% wool. It's available in most big box craft stores, so if I ever like need a little bit more for a project, I know where to get it. This struck my fancy because these are like heathered colors, and this is like it's passion heather and jade heather, and 100% worsted weight wool. It'll probably make really good color work. It kind of goes with the color, my personal taste in colors. And like I said, I always snag this whenever I'm thrift shopping, because I know I have stuff that goes with this and I can make a bigger project even if I don't get that many balls. I did get 4 of the purple and I got 3 of the jade. The main thing I was on the lookout for is I have yarn actually right here picked out to make my younger daughter something. And so I wanted to pick out something that my older daughter might like. And I came across this, which her favorite color is yellow. She loves like this mustardy yellow. She's got a couple of things that match this mustardy yellow. And I love this mustardy yellow too. And I like this blue color too. So I got cones of this. And the other thing that caught my eye besides the colors, I love like deep jewel tone type colors. This is 100% organic cotton yarn, and it's from EcoView Fiber Mill, which has since gone out of business, but they were located in Asheville, North Carolina, which is relatively close to me. So it really caught my eye and was really interesting to me. And so I snagged a couple of these. I already have a bulky weight vest or slip over picked out to make her out of this, and I think one cone is 271 yards, so I think I'll be able to make a relatively thin 8-year-old at least a little cropped vest that she can throw over things, and that's how she likes to dress. She loves putting little tank tops over top of dresses and things like that. I also saw this yarn that I thought might make her something nice, and it does have the yellow in it, and it has the other jewel tones in it, and it's just like this crinkly acrylic yarn. It looks like homespun, but it's much more inconsistent than homespun. Like, I think this thick part here is comparable to homespun, but then it goes thin in certain spots. And she actually asked for a robe for Christmas, and so I think this might make like a nice chunky cardigan. And then I found this same yarn in my color palette that I like, and so I had to snag a few balls of this. This is just a fingering weight, appears to be hand dyed yarn, and it was like $5, and I can tell it's like 60 to 70 grams of yarn. So, and it goes with some yarn I already have in my stash, and I think I can just kind of seamlessly add this into like a Stephen West shawl or the yoke of a sweater or something like that, and match it pretty well with some stuff I already have in my stash. And then last but certainly not least, I came across, this is Ito Kinu, which is a 100% silk yarn, and then Habu, which is silk and stainless steel. And I got these two because I've seen people online use these for spinning art yarn. Like, you spin a ply of hand spun raw fiber, and then you ply it with a commercial lace weight yarn, and you just get different texture and different effects. And so this is a nice low cost way of experimenting with a technique I've not done before. And so that's that. That was my purchase. That's all I got to show you this week. I feel like I kind of just dumped on you, but I wanted to get back into filming and get y'all caught up on some things. And then we'll be back to our regular scheduled program the next couple of weeks, hopefully. Let me know what you've been working on. I know a lot of people, like I said, I had a little bit of a cold recently. I know a lot of people this time of year aren't feeling super great. So let me know if your fall cold or allergies have caught up with you yet. Let me know what you're working on, all of that jazz. Oh yeah, Instagram. I'm at Rulude. You can also email me, candibknittin@gmail.com. I'm on the Ko-fi. You can buy me a coffee. Till next time, peace.